Alright, this is a video talking about the Nickel Plate Road and the main line that went to St. Louis right through Veedersburg. First thing you have to understand why this line got abandoned, because when it merged with Norfolk and Western, they had the Wabash route that was far better than the St. Louis to Frankfort main line. Now, as a kid, when I saw this line get abandoned, I had no idea how important this really was. Back in the 1950s and 60s, this line got a lot of train traffic. This was like the main artery to the western markets for the nickel plate. Now, if you look on a Google map, you'll see this tiny little village called Cates right down here. You can see this is Danville, this is Veedersburg, and this is Cates. Well, I talked to a gentleman. He's about 67 years old. He said when he was in the grade school in Cates, he said there were times where 5 freight trains would go by during the 7 or 8 hours that he was in school. So that's just an example of how busy this main line really was. The nickel plate got bought out or merged with the Norfolk and Western. They merged in 1964. This line did not get torn up until September of 1988. There's a gentleman somewhere in a small town called Malott that has pictures and video of them tearing up the tracks. He knows the month and the year. It was September 1988. What I find so fascinating, they were still running major freight trains on this line in the 1970s, even though they had the Wabash main line. Now, something else that's interesting about this small town called Cates is long ago there used to be, they said, a ketchup factory somewhere in this small town, and they would load up their products onto boxcars on the Nickel Plate Railroad. Now, where the grade school was way back in the day, I couldn't even tell you. But you can still see the old roadbed of the nickel plate going through this tiny little village called Cates. Alright, so back in 1971, maybe 2 miles south of Veedersburg, was a horrific derailment. Photos are courtesy of Sharon Roberts from a collection of Leslie Howard. Now check out the quality of these pictures. This is 1971. This is the co-op truck. So the story goes that the co-op driver was delivering outside of town and didn't realize the low level of this small trestle and got his truck smashed underneath of it and ruptured the rail. So when the train came along, it obviously derailed. The sad part about the story, see, I remember hearing this story years and years ago. The sad part about the story is he tried to get out and go, I don't know, contact somebody. Hey, contact the railroad, make sure they know what has happened and all that. But like within, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes, a doggone train comes along. It's like the worst luck ever. Now imagine what it was like for the insurance company that insured the co-op company when they got the phone call or the information to find out what had happened. Because if this is 1971, this looks like hundreds of thousands of dollars in damage. And that would be like 1971. The story that I heard years ago is that some local dealer, I don't know if it's Veedersburg or where, but they bought all these damaged vans or trucks and they were going to sell them at a discount. And I talked to people that were going to buy one, and then they found out they were still expensive. Like, they weren't really going to save very much money. So this is 1971. The nickel plate was bought out in 1964, and they're still running major freight trains down this line. So if you wanted to look on a map where this accident happened at, this is Veedersburg. It's like maybe 2 to 3 miles south. And I believe the road is called Underpass Road or E. Trestle Road. Now, when you look at these pictures, I'm not really sure what kind of model these vans are, if it's a GM or Ford or what it is. But it definitely has that 70s look to it. Now, if I was to take a guess, I would probably say that the co-op driver probably got fired. And I would probably guess that the insurance, after they paid this cost, probably dropped the co-op company from their insurance list. Now, there's a testimony right here. The L&N had a similar accident in 1990. A garbage truck hit an overpass and caused a major derailment. It took out part of the L&N Salt River Bridge and caused a disruption for up to 4 to 6 weeks. Now, I don't know who this person is who made this post, but I wish I could contact them. They have pictures of the P&E along 136 right outside of Covington in front of the bowling alley. The horrific accident, it was 1968, I believe it was October, and 27 train cars derailed and a person actually died. But they actually have pictures. I would love to post that. This person writes, this line was pulled up around 86 maybe. Well, it was actually September of 88. And it was pulled up, I think, Frankfort all the way to almost Charleston, Illinois. So if you were to take a drive south of Veedersburg today, this is what you would see right now. This is the location where the accident took place. This person writes, pretty sure the last train to go through Veedersburg was NS. It was 1987. If I remember correctly, there's some photos of the train on its way west from Frankfort, then coming back east with all the remaining cars that were on the line. That would be interesting to see that. So if you're a nickel plate fan and you are upset about this abandonment and track removal, all you got to do is just take a quick little drive right on up to Attica, Indiana, and you can see where all the train traffic went to. It's the Wabash Main Line. Now, I talked to an NS employee over in Danville, Illinois years ago. He said this track gets somewhere around maybe 30, maybe 35 trains a day. And my estimation of the nickel plate main line to St. Louis back in the 1960s probably got around maybe 10 to 12 freight trains a day. And if you would like to know more about this line or the nickel plate road, there is a museum in Linden, Indiana, which would be maybe 5 miles north of Crawfordsville. I've actually been inside here years ago. It is interesting.